Well, Johnny, Bob pioneered the monologue and was
Right.
there before everybody. And people like even you yourself have kind of, modeled yourself on what he did. And I could just feel Candy and Moranis fading back. They're like, what are you nuts? Are you going to go head to head with Carson, you moron?
Dystopia Tonight. Dystopia Tonight.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
It's a pleasure to be on your podcast.
Thank you, man. It's just a complete thrill to have you on, man. And plus, like I said, I know now you're telling me there's guests that we've had on that that I don't even know that you know. So now I'm just curious.
Well, some odd ones that you wouldn't think I know, like Steve Cropper.
Oh wow, yeah,
Really?
Yeah, I met him when Dan was doing the Blues Brothers.
Oh, nice, right.
And became friends with him and Duck Dunn and all the guys,
That's awesome.
So that was pretty good.
Yeah, he was great. He was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Richard Zoglin.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
He interviewed me for his Bob Hope book.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And Ron James
Oh,
was
nice.
played. I did this really ridiculous show called Rocket Boy, and Ron James played my sidekick, Buddy. I was Rocket Boy. And
awesome.
This is something that came out in the 80s, so
that's
good.
Incredible.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few people, Jay Kogan, I know he's a writer that actually know his father.
Yeah.
Lewis Black, of course, I know Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
And, so, yeah, you have a lot of people on that I know.
That's awesome. I love when all the guests overlap and they know each other and they have a fondness for each other too. So far, we've had no conflicting parties yet, which is nice.
Yeah.
I
mean, people who hate each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a better way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah, we had, somebody said, I love Rocket Boy.
There you go.
Awesome. Ron James was a blast to talk to. He's another guy. We got into it pretty good with the SCTV stuff and all the comedians coming from Canada and everything. I was going to ask you about, you had mentioned like Steve Cropper and all those guys. And when you were meeting them and stuff, did you ever like want to dabble in music? Were you one of those comedians who like secretly wanted to play an instrument?
Nope. I was in a folk group. I played five-string banjo for a while, but
wow, that's
I
hard.
was like, my brother is a legitimate musician. He's written like 25 albums and recorded, and his name's Ian Thomas. He's written songs that have been covered. Well, his Santana, Air Supply, Bette Midler, Chicago, a lot of bands.
Air Supply is so good.
Yeah, and so he's had quite a career, but he's a real musician. And my mother was a church organist, so she was a musician. But I really never got into it, And I had a pretty good ear for voices and mimicry, and so that was my music.
Right.
Yeah.
When Richard Zoglin was interviewing you for the Bob Hope book, because we had an interesting conversation when he was on, and he'd said that he was trying to think of the first real comic, like the first real stand-up comic, and he thought of Bob Hope. I know other guys who would go back to this guy in vaudeville whose name escapes me now. But where do you think like the origin of stand-up started? Do you think it was like Bob Hope, that kind of form?
Well, I mean, there may have been stand-ups in vaudeville, but that's not the same as Bob, who just went out off the vaudeville circuit and did his own. He was really the first stand-up.
Right.
I remember the first time I ever met Johnny Carson. We were at NBC shooting a show, and they said, "Oh, Johnny wants to meet you. He's backstage doing his Tea Time movies," So they walked us to his set.
Mhm.
And, you know, I was with John Candy and Rick Moranis. And
Wow.
so it was like Johnny was thinking that we're these young guerrilla comics and we think he's old fashioned and whatnot. So he was taking some shots at Bob because he knew about my Bob Hope impersonation. He was
Right.
taking shots at Bob and he was saying, oh, you know, he's like, he was on my show, you know, and you'd say, hey, you know, my wife just died of cancer. And he'd go, yeah, but I want to tell you, you know, and I listened to this for about a minute. And then I said, well, Johnny, you know, Bob pioneered the monologue and was
Right.
there before everybody. And people like even you yourself have kind of, you know, modeled yourself on what he did. And I could just feel Candy and Moranis fading back. They're like, what are you, nuts? Are you going to go head to head with Carson, you moron? And I wasn't really, you know, and I actually got to know him later, and I was a guest on his show, and I had lunch with him a couple of times. And it wasn't like that at all, you know, and he was a fan, and I was a fan, and I let him know that.
Yeah.
There was still to this day, there's no better late night talk show host than Johnny Carson.
Absolutely.
He was killer.
What do you think? Do you think anybody comes close?
If Jimmy Kimmel hadn't gone on his tirade against Trump and made his entire show a monologue on Trump, I would have said Jimmy Kimmel. But when he crossed the line, see, Johnny was very apolitical. He was like, hey, there's a place for politics. Watch the news, folks. This is a talk show. We do comedy here and that kind of stuff. So I love that about him.
Did anybody know his politics outside of it too, or was it all a mystery to everybody?
I think he kept it really close to the vest. I don't think he shared his politics with anyone. I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah, close. Yeah,
with
family.
His writers maybe or close friends, but you know.
Yeah.
John was actually
impressive.
John was just fishing for you to say John with the best talk show host is Johnny.
I'm like, anybody else you know? Anybody on the internet now? Maybe a bearded guy, a lot of hair. Anybody else?
I'm new to your show.
No, that's true.
So let me just say, so far so good. But the jury's still out.
That'd be hilarious if we did a check-in every like 12 minutes. We're like, all right, Dave, where are we at now? Well,
a meter. You need a meter.
Yeah, we need a meter. That last question was a real dud. So,
but it's tough, you know, because Colbert is very political too.
Yeah. Well, they all are to an extent
Jimmy
now. It's
Fallon
crazy.
is just a kiss ass. I don't even like watching that show, and he loves everybody. You know, I mean, I like Letterman because he was just a dick to some people.
Yeah, I fucking love and miss Letterman. I didn't think I was gonna. You know who I like? I like Letterman and I love Conan.
Yeah, Conan. Yeah, I like Conan too.
I miss Conan now that he's not on anymore. It sucks.
I thought you were talking about the people who are just still on.
But, no.
When he did his shows like from Jamaica and things like, they were really good.
Right? They were very funny. I used to like all that stuff. He really got to brand. Conan was, I think, the person who took the talk show format the farthest away from what it was originally.
Yeah.
And I liked that a lot about him. He always seemed very goofy, very silly, but very smart. I loved the Daily Show, but that wasn't really a talk show. The Jon Stewart when he was on,
it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't a talk show.
And then Jon Stewart just kind of went
away.
Yeah, he did.
He retired for a bit there.
Disappeared or something, you know.
Craig Ferguson's show was really good too. Did you ever watch that?
I enjoyed the wee Scotsman in his act. You know, he's pretty damn good. Yeah, from time to time. The guy who did the writing and played the voice of the robot that was on his show, his name's Tom Straw. He is a friend of mine. He was a showrunner. He was he did what was it? Night Court. And then a sitcom I was in called Grace Under Fire. He was
Love Grace Under Fire too.
The fifth showrunner in 5 years on that show.
Wow. Yeah, that was a great show.
She fired what was that? I'd love to hear Dave Thomas' favorite Joe Flaherty story. Well, here's one. When we were doing SCTV, I came into the studio one day and they said, we got to change things around. I said, why? Joe's gone. What do you mean he's gone? Like, we're in production. He's gone.
Right.
And I said, well, where is he? We don't know. We phoned Pittsburgh. We're in shooting in Edmonton, right? That's where we shot SCTV. We phoned Pittsburgh. We can't get a hold of him there. And we're looking for him. And so I went, so what are we going to do? Well, instead of his Guy Caballero thing, instead of this, we're going to do this and this. And then we're going to need some new stuff. Like if he doesn't come back, and then I find out he's in Italy.
Oh, wow.
Joe just got to a point. Our show really burned people out because it was just little sketches on sets, and it didn't play out like Saturday Night Live, and it just burned through the carpenters, it burned through the costume people, it burned through the cast, and it burned through us as writers. And Joe just kind of got fried and left town and went to Italy.
Wow.
That's my favorite Joe Flaherty story.
And he didn't tell anybody, not even a note. He's just gone.
Nope. Just left.
That's the ultimate Irish goodbye, and he's not even Irish.
Yeah. Well, he is half.
He's half Irish. Is he half Irish? Okay.
Oh yeah, half Irish, half Italian.
All right, then that cuts it. Then that makes sense.
Yeah.
What was it like when you got? Because you were you were all the original cast and stuff like that, and you did kind of have SNL for a bit to go up against. But I think, like I said it in the intro, I do think that SCTV holds up in a way that is a little bit. It's more pure sketch comedy, I think, than SNL turned out to be towards the end. You know what I mean?
Well, they were very different shows,
right?
And I visited the SNL set when Danny Aykroyd in the first season was doing it. Mm-hmm. And then I did a show with Lorne Michaels called The New Show.
The New Show, yeah.
He did in between his two stints on Saturday Night Live. And he did The New Show exactly like Saturday Night Live. So then I got a real chance to compare to SCTV. And here's how they were different. Mm-hmm. Number one, SCTV, although we did a few multicam things, was mainly single cam. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't done in front of an audience and it wasn't done live. Right. And so we burned through sets and costumes and props and cast and material way faster because in a SCTV show, we would be only on one set for 30 seconds, then gone and off to a different set. On SNL, when the lights come up on a living room set, you're in that living room set until the next commercial.
Right.
And so there was a predictability, and they were limited by the number of sets they could load in to Studio 8H. The other part of it is it's done in front of an audience. And I always wondered why a lot of the SNL people were doing stuff so big and also kind of looking up. And I realized when I got there to do The New Show that, this is like circus. This is a play. This is not you can't do a sketch in subtlety like we could do it on SCTV. Mm-hmm. You had to blast all your lines out big to the back row of the people sitting up there in those bleachers. So they were very different shows in the way they were written and shot and performed, and all those things, I think, makes it very difficult to compare the two, you know?
Right. Yeah. When you were on The New Show with Lorne, because he had left SNL, was he fully involved in The New Show, or did you feel like he thought like he shouldn't have left SNL? Was it weird?
No, he wasn't invested in it at all. And I mean, I remember he lured me to do it, and I left Toronto. I came down to New York, and he got me an apartment. I would say he treats you really well.
Right.
But he deep sixed the show. I mean,
wow. I
remember going into his office and screaming at him, literally yelling at him, saying, you brought me here and you said you're going to turn this show. And I said, look at these fucking ratings. We are 65 out of 70 shows this week. That's where this show is, 65th.
Wow.
I said, it couldn't be worse, you know?
Right.
And he said, you know, it's true. I wake up these days, and instead of thinking about what great sketch I would like to do, I think about what I'd like to eat today.
Wow.
And I burst out laughing because that was what he was best at, disarming people
Right.
that would come in with a gripe and scream at him, you know. Lorne is very political and he's very smart. He knows how to handle the press and he knows how to handle his players. And so he knew how to handle us. But he had that was probably one of the best writing rooms I was ever in. It was, you know, Buck Henry, Jack Handy, George Myers, who was one of the top writers on The Simpsons. He kind of led all the rewrites. Tom Gamble and Max Pross, Franken and Davis. It was an amazing writing room, and great stuff came up, and we did great stuff on that show, but nobody saw it.
Right. That's a bummer, man. Yeah, those are all great writers. I forgot that you had worked with Franken for a long time too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What was it like working with him in a writer's room? Did you see that he would want to be a senator one day? Did you get that impression that this guy? Oh, really?
I'll tell you how, he and Tom Davis used to stop everything at 6 or 6:30 to go and watch the news.
Really? Wow.
They were so obsessed with the news, and I couldn't understand that because I'm pretty apolitical, and you know, people say to me, "Who are you voting for?" I'll go, "What the fuck does it matter?" I mean, you know, I've lived in the United States since 1978. I don't know how many presidents that's been, or how many have been Democratic or Republican, but my life has never changed one bit. During any of these times. So it was like, so what's the difference then? I mean, America's run by corporate America.
Yeah.
And that's who's running the country. And the goons in Washington don't have anything to do with it. And the hot button issues are still the same.
Yeah, they are. Because they know that's what they get.
I was college editor of my college paper. And when we were short on copy or stuff wasn't coming in, I would say, just run that abortion piece. And we're just gonna get besieged with copy, you know?
Yeah.
And sure enough, and
it's
still
so true.
a hot button issue.
Well, somebody told me somebody told me the other day, and not to get too deep into it or anything like that, but somebody told me the other day, and I didn't even realize this, that Roe versus Wade is still an issue because the Democrats can, if they want to, make it law, but then they'll complain and they'll be like, well, you know, we'd like to, but the filibuster, which is just apparently just all bullshit, but they lean on that every year as a campaign point. So they're not going to make it. They're not going to do an executive order and just make it into law right away because it's what they run on and it's what the Republicans run against. So it's in no one's interest to make it a law.
And you got these massive companies like Google and Amazon. And like, who knows what the hell they're doing?
They're watching us right now. Hey guys,
you got that bizarre guy, Mark Zuckerberg, who changed the name of his company to Meta, and it's just like, whoa! What does he want to do? Does he want to take away real life completely and make everything a simulation? Is that what he wants to do?
Because he's a simulation.
Yes,
I'm pretty sure.
Doesn't he look like that? Okay. I was looking up Meta, just Googling it, and I came across this kind of a promo from Zuckerberg about, and so his avatar comes up, and then it cuts back to him. I swear to God, he's probably the only person who looks exactly like his avatar. His hair was sculpted. The clothes that he was wearing in person were exactly the same as the avatar's clothes. And it was like, so whenever he posed for that avatar thing years ago, and it's still wearing the same clothes, you know.
Yeah, he actually has enough money that every day that he changes his outfit, they make a new avatar to line up directly with his outfit.
That's who's running America, right? I mean, you know, come on. Most people don't even know what those companies are doing.
Oh, no, not at all.
And they are so far above the regulators,
right?
That Who knows? And
Well,
we'll
that's what I
find out
mean.
later. You know?
Like
Yeah.
him changing his company to Meta is hilarious that everybody let him do it, because it was like Facebook's in a lot of trouble and he was like, guess we'll just fucking change the name on all the credit card receipts, and that was it, and it was done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I guess that's a great loophole. I can't do that shit. I can't just be like, oh, I owe money and I'm in trouble. Better change my name to Phil. And then, I don't know who that John guy is, but fucking.
But that's why I love this country, because it's so insane.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Marty Short's dad used to call the United States the excited states. And it's a fact that 90% of everyone in Canada lives within 100 miles of the US border. So I've always pictured it as like Canadians sitting on bleachers, just watching America from their bleachers. And once in a while, they'll do something like this
Taking
truckers
notes.
thing in Ottawa.
Yeah.
But mostly it's Canadians watching American madness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the truckers thing in Ottawa is some kind of like spillover from America. Like they got some of the insanity, and it's contagious sometimes,
That's right.
Yeah. There's somebody has a question for Dave. What do you think Bill Needle would be up to?
Well, Bill Needle is basically me. I couldn't use the name Dave Dunham, but it was like, all of his pieces with him as a critic and things like that on SCTV, they were Dave Thomas rants. And I just called it Bill Needle. And I heard that name. I was in an airport and I was waiting for a plane. I heard Bill Needle, please report to the whatever desk. And I thought, oh, that's a good name. And I just remember that. And then I kind of appropriated it for the show. But it was like a name, Bill Needle, just like Needle. It just seemed like a perfect name.
That's hilarious.
And I wonder if the real Bill Needle was walking around like, did he ever put it together that was him?
Yeah, like he saw him in an airport and was like, I don't know. Guy took my name.
I don't know.
Son of a bitch. He's like, honey. And she's like, sure he did, Bill. Sure he did. Were you eager to get to America when you guys were all when you and John and everybody was doing SCTV? Was that something you wanted?
God, yes.
Wow.
Absolutely. I mean, we felt like total failures the first 3 years of the show. I mean, it was just like, SNL was this giant, and it was just like all the media and press and everything. And so we were originally shooting SCTV in Toronto, and then the Canadian broadcaster dropped us, Global Television. And CBC said they would pick it up, but they didn't have enough money to do the show. They never have enough money. They've been going out of business for like nearly 100 years, and they're still not out of business yet. But anyway, so then we moved to Edmonton, and I remember Joe Flaherty just going, God, I mean, where next? Skagway? I mean, they're moving us gradually further and further away from Los Angeles and New York, Wow. So we really did feel like not just second cousins, but, hillbilly non-cousins, non-relatives. Oh, wow. And we felt, I remember one time we went to New York for a press conference. This is something Andrew Alexander set up. John Candy was probably the most affected by this because he really wanted this thing to go,
Yeah.
And the rest of us had more of an attitude like, it sucks, but at least we're doing what we love,
Right.
Yeah.
But John had this burning desire for the show to be a success. So we got this press conference, and there's two people there. One, a student media guy, and another guy from a Long Island paper called Newsday.
Wow.
And that was it. And it was so depressing to be flown down to New York.
Yeah.
Two people.
Right.
Then when we went to Edmonton, half the cast quit. I mean, Catherine O'Hara took a year off.
Right.
John Candy quit. He signed up to do his own show called Big City Comedy.
Oh, right.
And Andrea and Eugene said they wanted to go to LA and try to, it was pilot season. They wanted to audition for pilots. So that was when I talked Rick Moranis into joining. And we got Andrea and Eugene to do 2 weeks of shooting that we then spread out through the show. But I was head writer at the time, and I was trying to cobble together a show in our third season. And what I didn't know was that NBC's president, Brandon Tartikoff, was watching the show.
Wow.
And had plans for the show.
Mm-hmm.
And after a third season, or during the third season, he put SCTV on all the NBC O&Os. Prior to that, we'd only been in 47 U.S. markets. Now we were in every U.S. market where there was an NBC show, where an NBC station.
Right.
So it was. And then the following year, Tartikoff said, "We want you to do a 90-minute version of the show, and it's going to be on Friday nights. And we're grooming you as a possible replacement for SNL, or we're grooming you to take over Friday nights because we don't know what Carson's going to do."
Right.
So that was the year where we got our big exposure. And unfortunately, we did 3 years actually, to try to kind of find ourselves, find the show, figure out how to do it. So by the time we hit that, we were kind of in our stride. We within that form, we knew what we were doing. And we won Emmys that year, and then all of a sudden we started to get noticed, and it changed everything. Once you get Emmys and you start to have people asking you to be guest stars on their shows, everything changes.
Yeah, is that when you guys started to hit it with the movies and stuff like that? Started to branch out a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, separately, Rick Moranis and I did these two beer drinking Canadian brothers,
Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Yeah. So that caught on. And originally it was only for Canada, and it wasn't even seen in the States. And then Tartikoff saw it when he did those in the third season, owned and operated.
Yeah.
He said, I want you to put that in the American show.
Nice.
And so we did. And then they caught on in the States. And ironically, but this is also true of Canada, Bob and Doug didn't really catch on in Canada until they caught on in the States. And when Canadians saw Americans like these characters, they went, "Oh, yeah, so do we, eh?" And but then it just that changed things for Rick and me in the show, because then all of a sudden we're on the cover of Rolling Stone as SCTV's best joke, and Time magazine, and Life magazine, and all this press, and on Letterman and the Tonight Show. And so we got an album deal and recorded an album, and it went gold and then platinum, and then we got, my agent said, we should do a movie. You got to do a movie. So Rick and I were going to write a movie, and then the SCTV producers and Brandon Tartikoff said, no, you can't. Because John Candy was getting movie offers at that time. People were going to be leaving the show.
Right.
Tartikoff said, you have an exclusive deal with us. You cannot write a movie. So Rick and I hired a writer with our record royalties to write the movie. And it didn't work out. These were improvised characters, and they're very difficult for somebody else to just jump in and write for them. So the script didn't work. But unbeknownst to me, our agents at CAA got it and sent it out, and they sent it out on Friday. By Wednesday, we had a deal at MGM. Wow. So now we got a deal for a script that we don't want to do. That's not in Mackenzie's. And I remember Rick said, I'm out. I'm not doing this. So I said, let's just rewrite the script. He said, they bought the other script. I said, Rick, they didn't even read the other script. They bought the deal.
Right.
And I had written some movies and done some stuff in California before this. So I had a little bit of experience, and I knew what the hype machine was like.
Sure.
So I started rewriting it, and I got to about page 30 or something. And Rick came over and he said, let me see what you got. And he liked this idea of opening with the two of us trying to wreck our own movie by releasing, originally it was bees, and then in the theater, and stinging all the audience. And then when we actually shot it, the producer comes in and says, "We can't release bees in the theater. The liability will be just beyond. It has to be moths." So it became moths, which is not as good as bees, but still.
Bees is the best idea. That is hilarious.
When Rick read that, he laughed because it was so self-destructive and so insane. He said, "Okay, let's do this." So he jumped in and we started writing it together. And then when we had to leave the show to go shoot the movie, so that was the beginning of us going off and doing movies.
Oh my God, that is the bee thing got me so bad. I didn't know anything about that. That is hilarious. That's a brilliant idea. I just can't stop picturing it.
There's this guy named Del Close who's like this Second City legend, a guy that directed so many people. He said to me, "Dave, I understand the mechanics of Bob Doug McKenzie," and he said, "They're antisocial." And he said, "That's because," and he had worked with me on stage. He said, "That's because you're antisocial." He said, they're the kind of characters that will park a car at a parking meter, not just ignore it and not put money in the meter, but try to get money out of the meter. And I laughed and I said, "Actually, yeah, it's true." And he said, "Yeah, that's." So that was the big joke in Bob and Doug, was that we put a baby mouse in a beer bottle and then fed it till it grew and then took it into the brewery. And I'd actually learned this because I'd been a copywriter at McCann Erickson, working on the Coca-Cola account. And there's these legendary stories of, and they give it a euphemism. They call it passengers. So it's like, they don't say it's a dead rat in a fucking beer.
Right.
They say you have a passenger. And it's sort of like airlines calling two planes crashing in midair a conflict.
Yeah.
It's not when people get vaporized out of existence, it's not a conflict.
Or a near miss in a car. You're like, near miss my fucking ass. Like that was, You know what's crazy? You know what I love about comedians and that story about the bees is that you guys had a crazy idea and you actually had to make an executive think about it seriously and say, "I don't know if you guys can release real bees." like the fact that you made these guys have to think for a second, like, could we do it? And then have to turn you down is just it's so hilarious. Oh my God.
I would have just been like, you just have to remove all the stingers. It's fine. We'll be fine.
Just dead bees.
You get like an hour out of them.
Oh my God. That's hilarious. So I got to go back real quick because the SCTV thing, were you guys aware of each other before you got recruited to do SCTV? Did you see each other like in smaller improv circuits, theaters, stuff like that? Or did you guys all meet when you came to do that show?
I knew Eugene Levy and Martin Short at McMaster, the university I went to.
Okay.
And we did plays together there. And the first show we did was Godspell.
Wow.
In Toronto, which was not really my idea of what I wanted to do in showbiz, but because I wasn't a musical guy. Marty was perfect for it because he's a singer and a dancer, and he's won a couple of Tonys, and but I'm not Broadway stuff at all. And but we did that show, and then there was a kind of a lull after that show where there was nothing going on. And then Second City started up, Second City Theater in Toronto. They opened a theater, and Eugene, Gilda Radner, Dan Aykroyd, Joe Flaherty, Andrea Martin got in the first cast. And then there were some changes, and I got into either the second or third cast. But I was in advertising as a copywriter at this time. Because after Gospel, when I couldn't get a job, I didn't want to be a waiter who called himself an actor. So I couldn't get any jobs. So I thought, well, I'll write up some fake ads and see if I can get a job in advertising, and I did. So
nice.
That's great.
As a kid, did you know this was your calling? Like, did you feel the pull towards entertainment? Or...
That's funny. I spent grammar school in Durham, North Carolina. I didn't even think about it then.
Okay.
And then we went to Great Britain for a year or two, a year and a half actually. And then we went to Canada. And so I came back to Canada for high school. Now, there were high school plays, but I didn't want to be in a high school play. I didn't want to wear a white wig and pretend to be a 60-year-old man in Life with Father. I wanted to be on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I told any of my friends that I wanted to be on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, they would have laughed at me because that was as far away from where we were in Canada as wishing you could go to Mars, you know? It was like Elon Musk type dream. So, no, I didn't tell anyone that I wanted to be in show business. It wasn't until I went to college and met Marty and Eugene, and we started doing plays. There wasn't even a drama department or a TV or a film department at McMaster.
Wow.
It was all extracurricular stuff funded by the student union. So we did some plays there, but that was when we all started getting together and realizing, oh, this is what we would really like to do. Right. So how do we do that now? And there was no specific way in Canada, in Toronto. There was nothing on TV that we wanted to be on. And then Godspell opened and Eugene and Marty got in that. Great cast, Gilda Radner, Victor Garber, Eugene, Marty, Andrea Martin. And then Dan Aykroyd and Valerie Bromfield blew in from Ottawa and started doing stuff around town. I remember meeting him and thinking, whoa, this is the most bizarre guy I've ever met. He is insanely funny. And I started socializing with him. And then he was in that first Second City company. And then when I got into Second City, I was working with him. And I had previously been in advertising. And we were only making $145 a week at Second City. And Danny was an entrepreneur then and now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his his Crystal Head vodka is more important to him than any movie or.
Yeah, it's good too.
I think so.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. So Dan and I started writing retail radio spots backstage and in the day when we were doing Second City together. And then we started writing, and then he went off to do SNL, and we continued to write. We wrote one screenplay about aliens and almost got it made. And then we wrote Spies Like Us when he had a deal at Universal.
Mm-hmm.
And that almost got made, but then Dan was supposed to be in it with John Belushi, and Belushi died, and then it got shelved for a while. And then I got into SCTV, and then I was doing it. So it was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there was an incredible number of really talented people gathered in Toronto looking for something to do in showbiz.
Wow.
And there were only a couple of gigs.
Yeah.
And like Paul Schaefer was the musical director of Godspell. And he was this incredibly funny guy with an ability to play any kind of music,
Yeah.
And became one of our best friends. I'm still close friends with him today. And Danny and and Marty and Gilda started dating, and it was a very kind of a interesting and amazing group of people to be involved with.
Yeah. Anyway. I like that. That was one of the things that I liked about talking to Richard Zoglin and having his book Comedy at the Edge when I was younger. I think I was like maybe 4 years into stand-up when that book came out, but I like seeing the timeline of everybody together because you guys run into each other. You don't realize who came up together and how close everybody is, and the directions you all kind of went with your careers and stuff like that, unless it's in paper form. You know what I mean? Unless somebody maps it out. And I like that kind of stuff a lot. What was the process like? Because you guys, you and Dan, you said you wrote Coneheads and Spies Like Us. What's the process from like writing something like that? And how long it takes in between to seeing it made? Did you think those projects that you had written like were gone and over with and you'd moved on?
Yeah. When you write a script, and rarely does it ever immediately go into production, Strange Brew is a classic example of the rare. We we were writing that while we were in pre-production. We were still trying to finish the script while we were prepping the film. And but Spies Like Us didn't get made for like, I don't know, 6 years or 7 years after Dan and I wrote it.
Wow.
And you know, it's very strange. And there are other things that, I mean, Dan and I wrote this thing about aliens. I still think it's a great movie. And
what was it called?
It was called Vilcabamba, and it was about the Americans took the aliens from Roswell, and they didn't know what to do with them. And there was an actual letter from Harry Truman that said it was harmful to the economic and political stability of the United States to even admit the existence of extraterrestrials. So in the movie Danny and I wrote, these two guys go and investigate the fact that they captured these aliens in 1947 in Roswell and then didn't know what to do with them. So they put them in a plane, flew them to Central America, and just shoved them out of the plane with parachutes. Just like, get the fuck out of the United States. Somebody else can deal with this. So they get involved with these Indians in Ecuador, the Cara Indians, who have this sort of amazing lifespan. They live to be, 125 years old. It's because they eat like a meager diet of beans and rice. Yeah. Apparently the key to old age is to starve yourself and live a miserable existence. So these aliens are with these Cara Indians in South America, and they wear the sort of bowler hats and print dresses that the local Indians wear. And our guys steal an F-4 jet. One of them's a former Vietnam pilot and an Air Force accountant now, and the other's an architect from San Francisco. Right. They steal an Air Force jet and they fly to South America to get in touch with the aliens because they find out where they are. So this almost got made by, who was the director? And then Spielberg was coming out with Close Encounters, and that was it. We got shelved.
What a bummer. Away. Those they didn't have enough creativity in their head to realize those two could have existed at the same time.
Nope.
That's such a bummer,
Hollywood, though. That'll happen,
Yeah.
TV too. If you got a television show idea and there's a show like it that's just come out, you're baked.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's happened to me more than a few times.
And the irony of it is, TV is so derivative that anytime there is a hit, the first thing they do is they start trying to do copies of them,
Yeah, absolutely. Either something is coming out that they can't do yours and it's too similar, or they've just canceled the thing that they want more of. And you're like, what? Make up your fucking mind.
Years ago, I remember hearing when I was pitching shows at networks, one thing you can't do is you can't sell animation in prime time. Enter The Simpsons. And all of a sudden, not only can you sell it in prime time, but it'll be on for over 30 years. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There are no rules in entertainment. And the executives are always trying to greenlight shows based on a set of rules or something that, like a business plan that they worked out when they got their MBAs, but it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie The Russians Are Coming? The Russians Are Coming?
Of course.
Love that movie. One of my favorites. I watch it like once a year, right? I always thought it'd be kind of funny if instead of Russians at this point, though, it was actual aliens that washed up on a small island and nobody believed the island. That was I was like, what a great concept. But instead of having it be people from Earth, it's just no one but I love that. But I like that that you just talked about that one. I love the idea of aliens getting shoved out of a plane. that's the America's reason to get rid of them is that's just brilliant.
And their saucer that crashed is on this architect's land. And the Air Force, they find this warehouse with an electric fence that's not working anymore. And this architect and jet jockey from Vietnam open it up, and there's a flying saucer in there. It's just sitting there. And there's jacks where they tried to lift it up. They couldn't lift it, and they couldn't move it. So they just built a warehouse around it and threw away the key.
Oh, my God.
that was to us a kind of a shorthand and fun version of what people do with conspiracy theory stuff.
Yeah.
They sideline it, and it's tinfoil hat stuff. That's what it is. It's crazy. These people are crazy. Nobody wants to investigate it.
Exactly. No, I know. And now look at this. During COVID and all that other shit that was going on, they came out with, the Pentagon may have an alien vehicle. We don't know. And then no one paid attention to it. Everyone was like, wait, what? What do you have?
And those Tic Tacs that you see, there's videos of fighter pilots tracking them and going, whoa, look at those things go. Holy.
Yeah. Have you ever seen one? We had Ed Asner on the show, and he said when he was stationed at Fort Dix, he saw
Fort Monmouth.
UFOs.
Yeah.
Fort Monmouth. Damn it! It's the Jersey in me. You know what I mean? We get a little Fort Dix, New Jersey. We get a little GTL in us.
You're the Jersey Devil. That's who you are. You're the Jersey Devil.
I know. Can you do a sermon real quick? You got anything for us? You know what? Actually, speaking of sermons, one of my favorite characters you played is in one of my favorite quote unquote horror holiday movies, Santa's Sleigh.
Oh,
you play the Reverend in that movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry. That was like one of my friends and I watch that every year religiously. It's the most laugh out loud, ridiculous holiday movie. Robert Culp is in it. Yeah, it's crazy good.
And okay, so the path to that for me is not something you would expect.
Right.
Because my sons at that time were huge wrestling fans. So we go to see wrestling matches. And I said to CA or my agents, and I said, "What? Can you give me a gig writing for this wrestling stuff?" So they did.
Wow.
And I got a job, and I actually created a character for wrestling and called Berlin. He only spoke German, and everyone hated him because he was a Nazi, obviously.
Yeah.
Everyone would hate him.
Yeah.
And, you try to create bad guy wrestlers. But anyway, we were going to wrestling matches, and we went backstage one time and met Goldberg. And he was the nicest guy. Posed for pictures with he gave my son his gloves and autographed them. And and then Goldberg said, "Hey, do you want to be in this movie with me?" Wow. And I said, "Sure." So I got in to Santa's Sleigh through wrestling.
Oh my God. That's crazy. I had no idea. The sleazy pastor too. Yeah. That was a great role too. So she had a question before, by the way. I want to get to that one too.
Yeah, I want to pull that up. How come she wants to know, how did you come up with the Richard Harris dance? And it cracks her up every single time.
Well, okay. So when he recorded MacArthur Park,
right,
I thought that was one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever heard. Because he's one of those actors like Richard Burton who couldn't sing.
Right.
He did this movie Camelot, and it's all spoken. He's got this breathy English voice like this. That's his normal talking voice. And then when he sings, "How to handle a woman. There's a way," said a wiser man. So I'm entranced by this. And I'm thinking, this is just so bad, it's great. And so when I heard MacArthur Park, I thought, I got to do this. And then Eugene Levy was doing this dance show, and he needed a guest on it. I said, "Well, come on, do MacArthur Park as Richard Harris." And I noticed that he had been going around the talk shows after Camelot. And he was wearing his Camelot costume stuff, these kind of blousy shirts and weird colors and very sort of merry month of May Camelot type clothes. And so I think I need an outfit like that. And so when we were rehearsing, I realized I got to do something in the bridge here. There's a long bridge in MacArthur Park. So they said, "Yeah, we can cut away." And I said, No. Keep the camera on me and I'll dance. I'll dance as Richard Harris. And then the other thing I wanted to do as a joke was that there's a high note at the very end. Someone put the cake on the tray. Took so long to bake it. Do it again. Oh no! So he did not sing that high note. I knew that. That was one of those things that was well known in showbiz at that time. Yeah. So I had this our post-production supervisor's girlfriend, who's kind of cute, in a leather suit, sitting in a chair, reading a book while I did my whole act as Richard Harris. And then when it gets to that high note, she just stops reading, gets up, leans into the mic, does the high note, and then sits back down. and I then take bows as Harris for that. Cut to 20 years later, something like that, I'm at the Toronto Film Festival. And people are always dragging you around. Oh, you got to meet this person. You got to meet. Somebody says, Dave, you got to meet Richard Harris. He's here. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to meet Richard Harris. This is exactly a flattering in person. Anyway, they go introduce me to him. They say, Richard, yeah, Dave Thomas, he played you on his show SCTV. He did. You see in MacArthur Park, it's hysterical. I mean, he does this, and Harris is just standing there looking at me. And he says, well, I never saw that show. And then he just starts pushing me like this. But I heard about it. And I heard that it wasn't that complimentary. And literally, I think he probably pushed me back about 20 feet. And he was really, obviously, he's an Irish rounder. He was looking to get into a fight or something,
Yeah, yeah.
Last thing I wanted at the Toronto Film Festival is to get into a fight with Richard Harris. So I was apologizing, saying, look, hey, it was, they say impersonation is the sincerest form of flattery, and any other kind of things like that I could say.
Yeah.
And dig myself out of it. But yeah.
Yeah.
So that had a real curve to it, that impersonation.
Just turned into a quick Woody Allen impersonation. You're like, I'm so sorry. Let me just everything you can get out there. He's got some really, like, I feel like stories, if he told today, would land him in jail. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I watched some of those old clips of him on Carson talking about getting drunk and climbing up women's windowsills and shit. And like, man, he was looking for a fight with you. That would have been nuts.
Yeah. I met Peter O'Toole at the Oscars one year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really kind of I'm talking to other people, and then I just turn around and I'm looking right in his face.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I swear to you, looking into those eyes was like staring into the gates of hell. It was the weirdest feeling that I've ever had. That was just like, whoa, holy moly, Jesus Christ. He was a real piece of work, that guy.
Yeah. Did you ever have to apologize? Like, because I don't know, you've been following stand-up, the current state of it and everything that's been going on with it. And, a lot of people have been apologizing, either fake apology, whatever. Did you ever have to apologize for a joke? And what do you think about, the state of things now and having to, go on apology tours for jokes and shit?
Well, I got out of comedy because of it, because it first of all, it became ridiculously politically correct.
Right.
I have a lot of friends who are stand-ups, and they had to quit the college circuit, and they made a lot of money there. That was their living,
Yeah.
And so, because the audiences were booing them, and they need these snowflakes, they need to save place. You got to give them trigger warnings in your monologue, so that they know to cover their ears. Well, come on. I mean, comedy historically is supposed to make people think.
Right.
Comedy is supposed to push the boundaries by definition. If you can't push the boundaries, then what are you doing up there?
Yeah.
It becomes like really child's play.
Yeah.
So I think comedy is in the dumper right now. And I mean, you can look at, there's a few shows that are sort of edgy, like Larry David and a couple other, but mostly comedy's real soft. And, the sort of applause that Ted Lasso is getting right now is a great example. Like, I like Jason Sudeikis, and I think he does a great job with that character.
Yeah.
But the show is so sickeningly sweet and optimistic and soft that it's the old hard-boiled cynics like me just kind of go, I don't want to say it. I don't want to hear about it.
So you prefer a more Seinfeldian type of sitcom where there's no hugging, no learning?
I like Larry David and Curb because he's such a prick,
Right.
And, I mean, that is really funny to me.
Yeah.
Because, he goes over to his agent's house and he's got a new house. I forget the actress's name who plays his agent's wife, but she's great. And
yeah.
she says, "So, what do you think of the new house, Larry?"
Mhm.
She said, "Do you want to go on a look? Do you want to go on a tour?" He goes, No, not really. And she gets mad. She goes, "Okay, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of this house." It's really funny.
I do like how Larry David in interviews will always be like, "He's who I wish I was." He's
Yeah.
like, "I'm fake 90% of the time, and he is the exact opposite."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know.
I
It's
kind of
hard
like
for
that.
me to find comedy that I can laugh at.
Yeah. I mean, look, I agree to an extent too. Like, I mean, I like the hat trick that Ted Lasso kind of pulls off, because Jason Sudeikis in his movies, he can be 100% snarky comedy. You
Oh,
know what I
yeah.
mean? Like biting. But I do like he kind of turned that into, like, the jokes that he delivers still land. They're still very funny. But you're right. It does have a sweet element to it. It's a very feel good show.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it came out during a time that people, you know, I mean, you're in COVID, everybody's fucking dying and shit. And then Ted Lasso's on, and you're like, all right, that's not bad.
But it's definitely not edgy. And,
No.
you know, comedy has lost its edge. I think Jason Sudeikis is wonderful in that show. And
Yeah.
I was kind of cynical about it. And then I watched it. And then I thought,
Yeah.
it's good. He's good.
Yeah.
So
It's weird. It's so weird, man. When I go out on the road and I do stand up, I don't see any of the divide. You know, I don't see any of the PC shit. I think when I'm out in the clubs, when people go to see stand up, they pretty much know. Like, so, but it's all online. You know, it's all the internet that makes up this, like, it's like a few people screaming with a megaphone, you know, and then they make it up, basically, that it's like that there's these issues and stuff. But when I go do stand up, everybody's fine. Everybody knows it's a joke. Everybody's happy. You know,
so you can go as far as you want then.
Yeah, exactly. In the clubs, I swear to God, man. In most, I've done red states, I've done blue states. It makes no difference when people are going to see stand up. The only trouble I ever had was I found that Trump supporters, like in Michigan, you know, and like in the weird purple areas of the country, they'd get upset. They were the only one. They're the only time I ever did political jokes where the audience felt a deep connection to their candidate, where they thought you weren't allowed to joke around about it. And I don't mean like pedestal bullshit. I mean like, you couldn't even make a joke about the guy without them freaking out. So that was the only time I thought it was a little weird. Other than that, everything's fine.
You can't make a joke about Trump. Give me a break.
I know, exactly. I'm like,
geez, he is
the
a
guy,
joke.
right?
It's very hard to top comedically what he does in real life. You know, I mean,
exactly.
Naturally.
I know.
It's the old trope of a joke and a joke, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like whenever anybody was like, "Oh, are you guys or comedians gonna miss Trump?" and I'm like, it's like asking the last few dinosaurs if they're gonna miss the comet. You know what I mean? Like, not really. I think we're gonna be all right. Yeah. As a human, I won't.
I'd like to see your stand. Is your stand up online?
It is. I'll send you some stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah, send me some links. I'd like to see it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, we'd like to. You said you're in LA now, right?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be out there in a few months and stuff. We're gonna go out there to pitch some stuff, and you know, so yeah, I'll probably be doing some shows.
Do you do stand up when you're out here? Where do you?
I do, yeah.
What, the Improv or the?
I do. You know what's crazy? When I was out there, I lived out there for 2 years. The entire time I was there, I never went to the Improv. I did the Comedy Store, the Ice House, Flappers, and oh my God, Comedy Magic. And then now 2 of them are not around. Yeah. And there goes, you know, half my reason for being there. But.
So this time he'll be at the Improv.
Yeah. So this time,
there you go.
Yeah. Did you ever try stand up? I know you had a special out doing a bunch of sketch stuff like that. But did you ever want to get up there and do stand up?
I did a show for CBS called Stand Up at 40, where as my midlife crisis, instead of having an affair with a 25-year-old, I decided to try stand up. And I had great guests on that show sort of tutoring me through this. Richard Belzer, Gary Shandling, Bob Goldthwait, and of course my friend Marty Short. And you know, I, as part of that show, had to get up at the Improv and do stand-up.
Nice.
Now, I've done hosting award shows and things like that. So that's like prepared jokes, and that's not stand-up.
Right.
But it's looks like stand-up, you know.
Right.
And so the first night I did my prepared shit, and I got laughs pretty good, but nothing to write home about. It would need to be enhanced with a laugh track for sure. Then the second night, I got kind of cocky, and I thought, I'll just kind of, I'll wing it.
Yeah.
See if I can kind of wing it on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am not exaggerating when I say that not only did I not get any laughs, and by that I don't mean there were no group laughs, there were no individual laughs and no pocket laughs. And I went after the audience because it was like, oh, you think you didn't like that? Well, you're really not going to like this.
Yeah.
And they were like looking down at their tables, not looking at me. And there were guys that I knew, stand-ups like Rick Overton and Jake Johansson, that were standing watching me. And I came off and they were laughing. They said, we never saw anything quite like that. We never saw anyone get up there and get no laughs at all.
Right.
And so that was a problem for me with stand-up, was temperament. If I thought the audience was just too stupid to get the jokes, I'd go after them.
Yeah, of course.
You can't do that.
No, I know.
Unless somehow that you sign a contract with them where that's your bet.
Right.
Where you are going after them.
Yeah, and they feel like they're in on it.
Yeah. I've seen Jim Jeffries go after audiences sometimes.
He's great.
And I mean, I don't know. I like stand-up, but I like to watch it, but I never really was. Here's the part of it that worried me.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the stand-ups I talked to said, it takes 10 years, Dave. 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what? Yeah. And you'll be at, Uncle Fucker's Chuckle Hut outside Atlanta. And
I played that room.
And they won't pay you.
Right.
You'll go there and you'll end up getting in a scuffle for your money and you won't get your money. And I thought, well, I don't want to do that. I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Just doing the stuff that I'm doing, So I just sold shows. And then as I told you, I moved over to drama, and that was the first time I ever took a staff job. Was a show called Bones on Fox.
I love that show. That's a great show.
Yeah, and I had the best time working on that show. And it was a different kind of writing for me. It was like forensic anthropology and gumshoe detective stuff.
Right.
And so this book that's up here in the frame, The Many Lives of Jimmy Layton, that was me after Bones and The Blacklist going, maybe I like to write a thing like that, And that's it's
a great book.
It's a you read it?
Absolutely. I swear to God, if it wasn't blurry a background, I'd get up and go grab it. I'll send it to you. If you can autograph it for me, I'll send it to you.
Oh God, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Give me your address along with the link to your stand-up.
Absolutely.
I wanted to write a quantum mystery.
Yeah.
And I was really, I had the best time. And this guy I wrote it with, Max Allen Collins. He wrote Road to Perdition. He's a famous mystery writer.
How'd you guys meet?
Oh, SpongeBob.
What?
Tom Kenny introduced us.
Wow. Oh, okay. All right.
We had a mutual friend, and he said, Davey's the guy that I think he's a big fan of yours, and he'd love to talk to you. And I said, give me his number. I'll call him. And I called him. We started talking. Then he asked me what I was doing. And I had 3 chapters of a pitch that I tried to sell as a TV show that I was thinking of writing as a book. And he asked me if he could read it, and I sent it to him, and he said, all right, I'll help you get a book agent. I'll help you get a publisher. But what I really rather do is write it with you. And I said, well, that's a win-win for me since I've written 0 novels and you've written over 100. So, all right, I'm in.
Wow. That's great. I gotta tell you though, if you ever do think about getting back into stand-up, Uncle Fucker's Chuckle Hut has a sister club called the Laugh Clip. I could probably get you into. So just if you're curious, I could hook that up for you.
I heard that, I think, from Rick Overton. Do you know him?
I love her. Yeah. He took me out to lunch when I got out to LA. He was very nice.
Did he?
Yeah, he took me to this. I met him. Do you know Jane Morris and Jeff Michalski?
No.
They have a place called the Fanatic Salon, and they're part of that Second City crew. Like they know Rick and all those guys. So I got to do stand up there, and then Jay Kogan. That's where I met Jay, Rick, Dan Castellaneta. Oh my God, George Wendt's wife, whose name is escaping me, and I feel really bad. But anyway, they were all there doing improv. So I got to meet them, and then Rick and I wound up talking because we had some mutual friends, and he was like, I know a great burger place, best place here. And he's like, let's go out to lunch and I'll take you there. And I was like, cool. And he's been really nice ever since.
Yeah, I love Rick.
Hey, thank you. Thomas is great. Mrs. Thomas's stories for days, enjoying it immensely. We had a lot of people watching. So
do you?
A lot of your fans. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
So let me
I don't get out much, Well, I tested positive for COVID, so I wasn't going out before that. When you actually test positive, you can't go out at all.
Yeah.
It's pretty horrible.
Well, how did you, when you had like the time, kind of everybody had time off during COVID and stuff. I mean, I started, we started doing it during COVID because I couldn't tour and stuff. Did you find it frustrating not being able to go out, or did you start to get into other areas of creativity during that time? Like, what was your saving grace?
I wrote this book. I did. We wrote this during COVID, and we wrote it on Zoom.
Right.
We actually never met.
Wow.
Oh, that I didn't know. I assumed you guys at least.
No, we didn't meet in person. We met through Tom Kenny. I told you about.
Yeah,
once, but during the writing of the book, we didn't meet or get together once. It was all Zoom.
And was that your first introduction to Zoom and stuff? Is that how you got into it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was pretty damn good, I got to say.
Yeah. One, it's a great book, but two, I feel like everybody, musicians, comedians, whatever it is, this is like not going away.
No.
And I like it.
Showbiz now is all Zoom.
Yeah.
You do pictures, you do pictures on Zoom. You don't go in the office and meet them anymore.
No, I know. Oh my God. I know. Which is kind of like, I kind of like that. I kind of like being in my own room.
Yeah.
And not having to fly out somewhere for people to go, yeah, we're not really looking for comedians right now, but thanks for coming in. It's like, really, thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Let us talk and we'll get back to you.
Right. Yeah.
No, you won't.
Yeah, exactly. I know, it's brutal. I want to go back real quick in time a little bit. When you were working with Lorne and you were meeting those guys and stuff like that, was there ever a point where you were just like, I want to do more writing? Because you seem to be like, you were the head writer of SCTV, but you did performing. Was there a point where you were like, I want to do more of this than acting, where you felt like your writing was stronger than anything else and being behind the scenes was better? Or did you really like performing better?
Performing was fun.
Yeah.
And performing paid more.
Mm-hmm.
But writing was bread and butter.
Okay.
I could always sell something. And
right.
When I first came out to LA, I got a job writing an adaptation of a book as a movie for Columbia Pictures. And then I started writing. I got on this kind of, once you write something, if it isn't a piece of shit, you will get other writing jobs, especially back then.
Right.
So I got hired by this guy named Mike Medavoy that was running a company called Orion. And and I did rewrites of movies and concept things. Most of them didn't get made. And then I did a couple of movies for Joel Silver, who became a gigantic producer after me, not when we were working together.
But you get some credit there. You started with him first.
Yeah, but I mean, so I have firmly established myself as a writer. I'd started out in advertising, writing copy, so I knew how to write 30-second spots. Then I got into Second City, and I knew how to write sketch. And contiguous and concurrently with Second City, I was doing movie scripts.
Right.
So after Second City, I just started pitching show ideas, and I'd go in. When I ran out of money, I'd go in and see if I could pitch something to somebody, sell it, and then I'd write that. Sometimes it'd get made, sometimes it wouldn't. But you always got paid to write it.
Right. Was there anybody that you emulated back in the day? Somebody that you looked up to when you started that you admired?
Oh God, there were a lot of writers I admired, but most of them weren't comedy writers. There was a guy named Dan O'Bannon that wrote sci-fi. He wrote Aliens, I think.
Wow.
And he wrote a bunch of sci-fis. He was a really good writer. And I was a fan of Danny's, but I was working with Danny's. But you can be a fan of somebody's even though you're working with them, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But Aykroyd has a pretty unusual mind, and his ability to come up with stuff shocked me. When we started writing Spies Like Us together, I met him at his office. It was a bungalow at Universal that he shared with Belushi. And there was a steamer trunk full of books. And he said, David, we got to read every one of these books before we put pen to paper. and it was smart. And he was a very sort of research-oriented writer, you know?
Wow.
The speed raps that he did on Second City Stage and SNL were all very informed. When Danny, you know, prior to Danny, when somebody played a plumber in a comedy sketch, they played it as a stupid guy.
Yeah.
They'd play him to make fun of him. But when Danny played a plumber, he would play this guy with integrity. And he knew everything about the differences between copper piping and plastic piping and PCV valves. And he would just start gushing these facts, and the audience would be kind of delighted with his data as much as his comedy, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty. So when I got a chance to start working with him, it was really fun, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one time we were like doing this thing where guys were trying to steal a car, and I was starting it, and I went through the cycle of and then finally, and Danny looks at me. He was so delighted. He went, "The solenoid," and I went, "The solenoid." And just the idea of adding that detail to the sketch delighted him, and I was so happy that I could do that and make him laugh.
That's great. Oh, that's too good. Would you guys? I mean, have you guys ever talked about doing a reunion, like a get together, all of you?
Well, we did one for Netflix that was kind of like directed by Martin Scorsese, that's still sitting there.
Yeah.
That hasn't been edited yet.
I heard about it. I thought it was, I was wondering why nothing ever got put out. And then I thought maybe it never got made.
We shot tons of stuff.
Wow.
We spent a lot of money on that. And there was a stage show, not sketches, but interview. Jimmy Kimmel was the host, and all the cast of SCTV was there. And he asked us questions. Then they put sketches up on the big screens for the audience, and then we comment on them. So, and then we did interviews and things like that. There was a point where we were going to do sketches, but that sort of fell apart. It was more of a scheduling thing than anything else.
Right.
And then it's all that footage is sitting in Scorsese's editing room. So, you know.
He's too busy complaining about Marvel movies to get it done. Like, if he would just get out of the press, stop trying to de-age Bob De Niro and go edit this film.
Yeah.
The technology's almost there, John.
No, seriously. I'm like, what are you waiting for? It's killing me. Joe, I just want to thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been a blast. We got 3 more questions that we ask every guest. They're staples of the show.
Okay.
So first,
before we hit our 3 questions, guys. Real quick, anybody else that shot us a question, I want to try and get them in there.
Sure.
One more for the Roach. As a fellow history buff, what is the favorite historically themed SCTV sketch you guys did?
Good question.
I guess it would be Man Who Would Be King of the Popes.
Oh, that's a good one.
There we go.
That's a real good one.
That was one where we started doing impersonations on SCTV because we couldn't afford guests. So we thought, well, we'll impersonate people. So Joe could do Peter O'Toole and I could do Richard Harris. And we taught John Candy into doing Richard Burton, even though he couldn't really do him. And Joe just said to John, no, just do whoa. Just do a lot of that. And so John is doing that. And meanwhile, it was a kind of a battle between Joe Flaherty and I to see who could blow the other guy off the screen with their impression. So,
oh my God.
Awesome.
And Eugene was in there briefly playing Victor Spinetti, the tailor, who had no lines at all, just eyebrows.
Who better, right?
Oh, and Catherine O'Hara was Catherine Hepburn.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
So
good.
I think that was probably my favorite historically themed sketch.
That's
Nice.
great.
And I have one more from Behind the Bits. Love to hear your favorite Brett Butler story.
Ooh, that I can actually tell on camera.
Tell them all. Tell the ones you can't tell.
I don't know. One of the things that happened to Brett was she lost her self-awareness. This happens with stars when they become popular.
Mm-hmm.
They get isolated by their entourage, and they lose touch with what made them funny.
Right.
I've seen it happen a lot, and it'll happen with comedy performers who will all of a sudden one day look in the mirror and say, hey, I don't look that bad. Maybe I could be a male lead. And like, no, you can't. You're homely and horrible looking. So anyway, I'm backstage with Brett. We're about to go on. And there's a bit of a pause. They're doing stuff in production. And she turns to me and she says, she had kind of an Elvis voice.
Yeah.
She turns to me and she says, my mama, she was a genius. And I said, no, really? And then there's a pause and she says, turns back to me and she says, my daddy, he was a genius too. And I said, really? I said, well, Brett, if your mama was a genius and your daddy was a genius, there's a pretty good chance that you too are a genius. And without a word of irony or anything, she looks at me and she goes, oh, I know. Well, a lack of self-awareness there. You telling this to a comedian and you don't get it.
Right.
I told that joke around the set. And so it was a buzzword in a buzz phrase in the show. People were going around going, oh, I know. And everyone was laughing. Brett, she was the only one that didn't know the joke.
Right.
But she was smart. She picked up on it and knew that was a joke that she didn't get. And, but I don't know if anyone ever told her or not. But so that's a Brett Butler story that I've never told. And that is one of the nicer ones that I could have told. Things that happened with her.
We'll film bonus footage with Brett Butler stuff on the after the show ends that we can slowly leak out.
My God.
It's Dystopia Tonight, Dave. I gotta do something. We gotta get something to be the end of it. Oh man. What I gotta ask you too. I've got a SCTV question. One of my favorite sketches is Roy's Food Repair. Who wrote that?
That's not SCTV. That's the new show.
That's the new show?
Yeah, and that was George Myers.
Holy shit. I always thought that was SCTV.
Yeah.
Ah, well, there you go. I'm an idiot.
Our fact checkers, John. Our fact checkers.
I really know I know that clip and that sketch so well. I swear to God, I thought, wow, it's a new show. Holy shit.
Yep.
Well, thanks. I'm gonna edit that out to make it look like I came out on top. It's just gonna be me going, the new show.
I never forget who wrote anything.
Really?
Yeah, really? I was such a writer and so competitive with other writers. And when somebody would write something and then that was a good sketch that I wished I'd written. And it was just kind of like, God damn it. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
So,
you know what? I'm gonna ask you those 3 questions eventually, but now I still want to talk to you. I'm like, I keep telling him that I'm like, don't worry, it's gonna end. We're gonna get you out of here. And then I'm like, let me ask you this: your favorite brand of jacket? No, I don't know.
The straight jacket.
That was quick.
That was great. But like, I have a genuine question too, because when I was a kid, before I started, doing any of this kind of stuff, I had the impression that, writers felt like writers, comedians felt like comedians, And then I realized that writers feel awful most of the time. They think their stuff sucks. You know, there's a lot of, you know what I mean? There's a lot of pressure around it. But I really thought that like you just, if you were writing stuff, you felt like that. I thought that those things were feelings, right? Instead of hard work. Do you remember a point where you felt you were a writer, where you were like, oh my God, I get it? Or is it always a constant struggle?
Well, I have this theory about being funny, and it applies to writers too. It's not a talent, it's a condition. People who are funny because they're trying to push people away. Especially during adolescence. That's when you wouldn't get it. You're not a jock. You didn't get accepted or whatever.
Right.
And when I would be as head writer on any show or show running, when I'd be interviewing writers, if somebody came in and they were like a big, tall, handsome looking guy, I'd go, this guy's not funny. Before he even opens his mouth. But if I see an overweight guy or a nerdy guy, a little short nerdy guy, or somebody that looks like Gilbert Gottfried or something like that, I'd go, come on in, let's talk. Once in a while you get tricked, but basically that runs it. So
in other words, if there's a guy that looks like he smells like pee, he's hilarious.
Absolutely.
You're like, that guy.
You got to at least give him an audience.
Right.
So, to answer your question, I sort of sidestepped it with that because you made me think of that at the beginning. There's always a point in any script where you're going, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I can't do this. I'm a fraud. They're going to catch me. They're going to find out now that I'm no good. Right. And then I suck. And it's going to be, everyone's going to know it. So there's always that moment in every script and in some sketches, really. Once in a while I felt that sort of thing where you think somebody else is holding the pen and it almost writes itself, but usually in shorter pieces. The long form stuff is always there'll be moments of inspiration, but it's mostly just I have a friend who mimes typing like this. He's a writer, and
that's so great.
That's his that's it, And so there's moments where you kind of you have to get up and walk away.
Yeah.
You can't, you know what I mean? You can't
totally
do it.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, so now for the Dystopia 3, finally. Ready? If you could go back in time and talk to your younger self and give yourself a piece of advice that would help you today, what would it be?
Buy Apple. Buy Apple stock.
That's
or
smart.
Amazon stock.
Yeah, anything. Yeah.
I think it would be funnier if you didn't say stock and then young you just bought a lot of apples.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know why, but I need these.
Just going to orchards every day.
Worth a lot of money one day, and they're just rotting. They're just rotting.
Oh, that's great. Oh God, fucking hilarious.
Old B is a clown. Good. That'd be the ultimate practical joke on you.
He buys a plot of land in the Amazon. And they're like, did it all wrong. Doc Brown is screaming at him. Yeah, okay. And the next question is, if what had to end in your life, good or bad, for you to wind up where you are today?
Crap, that's very thoughtful and deep. I think I'm much too shallow a person to be able to answer that question. It's I don't have a joke for it off the top of my head. But it's the kind of thing that I should answer with a joke, It's like one of those questions, do you believe there's life after death?
Right.
It's like, I don't know, but I'm taking a change of underwear just in case. I need a glib Bob Hope joke for something like that.
Right. If you want,
that's too deep for me. I can't answer.
Oh wow, we've never had nobody. All right. If you want, you can go back and change your first question to get an answer for the second question. Buy Apple, but also
so you can do time travel on your show. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do anything on this show.
All right.
You're just gonna go shake your younger self and be like, this Keebler elf bearded looking fuck is gonna ask you a question you can't answer. He should be making cookies in a tree, but he decided to do comedy.
Cookies in a tree.
All right. So the next question is the theme of the show, basically. So if this was a real dystopia and there were alien zombies, a comet heading toward Earth, climate change hits, what would be your epic death? How would you want to go out? And what weapon would you use?
I would use a M4 carbine.
Okay.
With extra clips.
Nice.
I
love it.
That was great.
Put the selector on fully auto fire and take out as much shit as I could before I got taken down.
That was real specific. That was great.
It's amazing he didn't have the answer for the last question, but that one he's like, got it.
Well, the other one was philosophical and deep. This one was just carnage and end of world.
That's true. So the lesson we've learned here is do not fuck with Dave Thomas because he knows what's up. He's got to.
I think you found the name for the episode. Don't fuck with Dave Thomas.
And he will beat the shit. In detail.
Yeah.
It'll have a collapsible stock. It'll have a forward pistol grip. It'll have 30-round banana-shaped clips, and it'll have a flash suppressor because I don't want those bastards to know where I am.
I'm gonna dig up Richard Harris so you can fucking start pushing him back. Why didn't you shove him back? I didn't know you were a badass. Holy shit. That is great, dude. It has been so much fun talking to you. Thank you for staying for as long as you did.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure.
I really enjoyed it. Pleasure.
Thank you so much, man. You got to come back.
Don't forget to send me that email. I want those links to your stuff.
Absolutely, man. I'll send you all the links. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Look forward to it. Thanks. Have a great one, Dave.
Bye.
Dystopia Tonight.